Our story begins inside of the front half of the Invisible Hand flagship as it is descending through the clouds of Coruscant. Alright, but before the story, I want to talk to you about something that's really been helping me out lately. CyberGhost VPN, our sponsor for today's video. And look, I'm sure you've all heard of VPNs before, but this is one of the best possible ones that you can get, with over 38 million users worldwide and over 20,000 excellent reviews on Trustpilot. And believe me, if you want real digital online privacy, a great VPN like CyberGhost is essential. There are more eyes than you can imagine watching your every move, every time you go online, and yes, even in incognito mode. Whether it's your internet provider, your school, or your work IT department, they can all track what you're up to. Until you get CyberGhost VPN, and all you have to do is simply select one of their over 100 locations before you browse to encrypt and reroute all of your traffic through their secure servers. This way, no one will ever know about your online activity. And maybe right now you're looking at me like, I don't care who sees what I'm doing. Well, CyberGhost also unlocks geo-restricted games and content from over 40 streaming platforms. Whether it's Netflix, Prime, Disney+, you name it. All sorts of different content that you don't have right now, you can get access to. You can even score better deals simply by changing your location online. And it will work on all your major devices. You can use it on up to 7 devices, and with my link down in the description, you can get their best deal ever of just $2.03 per month, plus 4 months for free. There's even a 45-day money-back guarantee, so you truly have nothing to lose. And by signing up with my link below, you also help me keep doing this full-time for all of you. Everyone wins. And now, back to the video. The other half of the ship was still floating in space, and the only remaining survivors on board were Kenobi, Palpatine, and of course, Anakin Skywalker, the greatest pilot in the galaxy. Jedi and senators alike watched from the fiery streets as the ship came crashing to the ground, and inside, Anakin Skywalker was more focused than ever. Obi-Wan was holding back the urge to speak to Anakin to help him, as he knew this was Anakin's moment, and Palpatine was trying to hold back any thoughts that his life's work could end in a situation like this. And, miraculously, Anakin Skywalker would guide the half a ship right into the landing bay as emergency crews sprayed water on it to try and put out the fires. The ship was shaking heavily. Pieces of it were being ripped apart on the inside and out. And finally, it came to a halt near the end of this landing strip. Obi-Wan breathed a huge sigh of relief, brushed away his hair, and said it was just another happy landing. But Anakin didn't move. Obi-Wan felt horror in his heart as he saw blood trickling down from the seat. He lunged forward to see a jagged steel piece of the ship bursting from the cockpit and right into Anakin's gut or chest area. Anakin's eyes were wide open as he was looking down at it, and he managed to get out a few final words, telling Obi-Wan to keep Padme safe, and Anakin's head would slump forward. Obi-Wan was by his side in an instant, voice breaking as he shouted for the medics swarming the landing bay. He was feeling only the faintest flutter of a heartbeat in Anakin, and the next hours would blur into a frantic haze. Medroids cutting through the metal plating, Anakin being lifted out of the cockpit and onto a gurney. Obi-Wan would catch flashes of the growing red smear on Anakin's robes, the tone of medical scanners, voices yelling vitals that were slipping with each step. The repulsor gurney bumped through the temple halls with Obi-Wan beside it, his mind refusing to acknowledge that he was losing the boy he raised and trained. When they burst into the temple's medical facility, Anakin was being worked on by medical droids immediately. Yoda was here, and he would tell Obi-Wan to wait outside of the bay. For Obi-Wan, the hours would feel like seconds and years, all at the same time, and he just kept remembering those final moments after the crash when everything seemed fine. Palpatine would be escorted back to his office after the crash, and he was admittedly quite worried. His plans with Anakin were progressing quickly, but he knew, even if Anakin somehow survives, his ability to fight will be nowhere near what Palpatine needs from him, so he would need to be discarded from plans. And meanwhile, Padme Amidala spent an hour in her apartment, crying over the news. She wanted so badly to go and see him, and finally she decided she would. But then, Obi-Wan Kenobi flew to her apartment, and the two of them shared a solemn hug. Obi-Wan looked at Padme in both eyes, and he gave the best news considering everything. He said that Anakin has been stabilized, but he is in a deep coma. The shrapnel punctured through his ribs, scraped a lung, along with a ton of muscle. He is alive, for now, although the temple doctors do not have much faith that he will survive this." Padme couldn't believe it. She told Obi-Wan that if anyone will survive, it's Anakin. And then Obi-Wan asked her to sit. He told Padme that, right before Anakin went under, he asked him to protect her. And Obi-Wan swore to Padme that if this war somehow takes a turn for the worse, that he will make sure that she is safe. And in this moment, Padme would reveal a deep secret to Kenobi. She told him that she is pregnant with Anakin's child. And Obi-Wan knew he should be disappointed in Anakin. He broke many rules of the Jedi Code. And yet, Obi-Wan just found a smile, saying he will do everything in his power to protect her and her child. And for both Padme and Obi-Wan, the next couple of days would go by in a blur. Every hour, Obi-Wan would find himself back in the medical bay with no update. Anakin was out cold in a coma. Battles across the Outer Rim seemed to be coming to an end, and soon, Palpatine would inform the Council that Grievous has been found on Utapau. Initially, the Council was hoping to send Kenobi to end this, but it was clear that Anakin's coma was deeply affecting him, so they sent Kit Fisto, and Yoda would try and help Obi-Wan let go. But one thing was clear: Obi-Wan loved Anakin more than any Jedi should be allowed to love. Anakin was like a brother, a son, and a best friend all wrapped into one to Obi-Wan. He couldn't lose Anakin, not after Qui-Gon and Satine. Yoda would go to Kashyyyk, Fisto to Utapau, Plo on Cato Nemoidia, Mundi, Stas Allie, Aayla Secura, so many other Jedi out in battle, and Obi-Wan was on Coruscant. And even the Jedi on here were focused on Palpatine and the Senate. He was the only one who kept checking up on Anakin, and soon, as Anakin was showing no signs of coming out of this, he would be moved deep into the temple basement medical wing. There was a Bacta tank set up for him here, along with droids specifically designed to watch over Jedi in a state like this. And finally, Mace Windu would hear reports that Kit Fisto and his troops have engaged Grievous. With this news, Mace made his move, taking Saesee Tiin, Agen Kolar, and Shaak Ti to Palpatine's office to arrest him, while Obi-Wan and Sindralic were in charge of making sure the temple is secure in case something unexpected happens. And the unexpected would indeed come to pass. Because Anakin was never told to spy on Palpatine, he never told the Jedi that Palpatine was Darth Sidious. And although Mace had some thoughts about it, when Sidious ignited the Red Blade, none of the Jedi were truly ready. Kolar, Tin, and Ti fell in seconds. Windu would last only minutes. The Jedi were dead, allowing Palpatine to expose them as treasonous, and he moved to his communicator to speak the words: "Execute Order 66. And as a side mission, ensure the Temple Medical Bay is completely destroyed. Anakin will die," and Sidious decided he would take the children from Padme instead. Across the galaxy in this moment, thousands of Jedi were falling dead, fired upon by their own clone troopers. Masters, Knights, Padawans, all gunned down in a moment of cold-blooded betrayal. But in the temple, things were not moving as quickly. Obi-Wan was alone in the council when the sun did set. With every second that passed, he became more and more worried about Windu and the others. The Force was dark. And then came the screams, mixed with blaster fire. Clone troopers began pouring in from side entrances, crashing through windows. All of this was a distraction for the main attack, marching up the stairs. And Obi-Wan flew into action, Blue Saber cutting in between clones that were wearing the blue armor of the 501st and the orange armor of the 212th. Every clone was merciless, refusing to back down or listen to him, and Obi-Wan was one of the only masters in the entire temple. As he cut down a squad of clones, cutting into the doors of a youngling training room, his heart shattered, but he knew which side he was on, and soon, Kenobi watched as explosives erupted through the medical bay in the upper levels. Obi-Wan knew this had to be to kill Anakin, but the clones didn't know where Anakin truly was. Kenobi would sprint down into the lower level medical area. He found Anakin still in a coma in the Bacta tank. He prepared to just roll it out of here, but just above him, Obi-Wan could still hear the sounds of blaster fire, Jedi screaming out, explosions shaking the ground, and Obi-Wan knew he had just one choice. He knew he needed to go help the others. He knew that even if he rolled the Bacta tank out of here, he would never make it far. He told Anakin now that if he's going to wake up, he has to do it right now. He begged Anakin to show him any sort of sign. A huge explosion suddenly shook the entire room, and the medical droids in here were crushed by falling debris. Obi-Wan closed his eyes, wiped away tears, and he told Anakin he will keep his promise to protect Padme. He gave Anakin one last look, and he dove through the medical bay doors right as more debris came collapsing down, sealing Anakin inside of a broken room. From here, Obi-Wan would spend another hour in the temple, guiding as many Jedi as possible into the endless lower levels of Coruscant, and when the temple was clear of Jedi, either dead or evacuated, he moved on to his next mission. Across Coruscant, Padme was pacing in her room as she watched smoke and fire rise from the temple. She knew Anakin was in there, and part of her thought that perhaps he woke up and was fighting against this terrible attack. But then, 3 LAAT gunships flew straight for her apartment, lights shining brightly into the balcony. They parked just outside of the balcony stairs, and 12 total clones moved into her home, arresting her for conspiring with the Jedi. She didn't understand, but as she was being dragged towards the gunships, a speeder flew towards the apartment, and Obi-Wan Kenobi used the Force, pushing the ships into each other. They crashed and fell to the ground, and Kenobi ignited his blade, flipping through the air. And before Padme could even comprehend what was happening, all 12 troopers were dead, and Obi-Wan was bringing her aboard his speeder so they could get out of here. Obi-Wan flew the 2 of them deep into the underworld, and when Padme asked about Anakin, Obi-Wan just shook his head, saying he's gone. He couldn't save him, and the 2 of them were forced to disappear deep into the Coruscant underworld, as Obi-Wan knew that the Sith were surely hunting down Padme to try and get Anakin's child. A few days later, the galaxy had completely changed. Palpatine declared himself Emperor, Yoda tried to fight him, and he lost, going into exile without knowing that Obi-Wan was alive. The war was over, but the Republic was replaced by something truly evil, and in the underworld, Padme would go into labor, forced to give birth in a rundown hospital, while Obi-Wan used mind tricks to make sure none of the doctors would turn her in. Medical droids would help to deliver the twins, and now Obi-Wan and Padme were laying low, blending in with the overcrowded people, raising 2 twins in the streets. And in the Jedi Temple, in a Bacta tank buried in the lower levels, where electricity was barely clinging to life, Anakin Skywalker would remember flying the invisible hand ship, his mind coming to life, and for him, that felt like just seconds had passed as he opened his eyes, and in a panic, he found himself in a Bacta tank. He stumbled out of it, crashing hard to the floor. His head was spinning in throbbing pain, stomach still wounded, though the Bacta did wonders for it, and Anakin looked around, realizing where he was. This was the Jedi Temple, although it was ruined. He didn't understand, and he grabbed his lightsaber from nearby, slipped on his robes, and although he could barely stand, Anakin stumbled over to the debris that covered the door, and piece by piece, Anakin would clear an opening for himself. He didn't understand what was going on. Why was the temple breaking apart? Slowly, he climbed up the temple stairs and soon found himself looking out into the wide opening of the main hall, and spread out all throughout the temple were clone troopers of the 501st and 212th, dragging dead Jedi bodies out of the halls. Anakin didn't understand. None of this made sense. He was about to step out and ask what was going on, but before he could, 3 Jedi Knights around his age landed a speeder and walked through the main door. Anakin overheard them saying that they received word that the war was over and that they should come back here. Of course, Kenobi was never able to shut down that message, but within seconds, blaster fire filled the room as these 3 Jedi were murdered on the spot. Anakin turned back behind the corner, fear and shock rising in him, and he truly did begin to understand. He's been out for much longer than he realizes, and someone activated the inhibitor chips that Fives tried warning him about during the war. Anakin's new objective was quite simple: survive. He would eventually crawl out of an emergency exit and wait until there were no clones in the area as he got into a speeder and flew across Coruscant to Padme's apartment. It was empty, damaged, and Anakin felt so hopeless, and he flew down into the Coruscant underworld. He had nowhere else to go. He was weak, and as Anakin landed in a safe warehouse, he would find the latest HoloNet news reports, and he would read the updates. The war is over. The Republic has been turned into the Empire. Palpatine declared that the Jedi Order tried to kill him and take over, so the treasonous order was wiped out. Anakin also read that senators accused of conspiring with these Jedi will be hunted down and arrested. Anakin slid down the wall, and he knew one thing for certain: if Padme is alive, he will find her, and he will also be the one to eventually destroy Darth Sidious. But right now, Anakin could barely even lift his arms. The wound in his gut was still there, and it would take quite long to fully heal. The underworld of Coruscant was like a prison for all of them now. For Obi-Wan and Padme, it was survival first, as they focused on keeping the two small children safe, in a place where food was quite scarce, and danger lurked everywhere. The Empire's rise turned the surface of Coruscant into a fortress, and any attempt to get off-world would be nearly impossible for the two of them, certainly not worth the risk of the twins getting caught. In the underworld here, criminals thrived in the absence of the Jedi Order that once at least tried to keep law. Obi-Wan kept his lightsaber hidden, but when the gangs came too close or when slavers or thieves threatened them, Kenobi struck with his blade with perfection, leaving no one to explain what they saw, as his strength would be reserved only for when it mattered the most. Padme would learn to fight in the shadows as well, training with Obi-Wan, taking up blasters scavenged from fallen pirates, knowing she must also protect the twins. The two of them would grieve in silence. They were haunted by Anakin's absence, and yet the twins gave them a purpose to keep going every single day. Each night, as the children slept, Obi-Wan would find himself holding them a little bit tighter, almost as if he were shielding them from the galaxy itself, almost like they were his own. And with Padme at his side, they were forming the outlines of a new family, as Obi-Wan would keep his promise to protect her. But elsewhere in the maze of neon lights and worn-down buildings, Anakin was emerging from the darkness with a rage in his chest and pain radiating in his body as he tried to get back to full strength, let his wound fully heal. He was like a shadow in the depths of Coruscant, training back to full strength by dismantling gangs piece by piece, striking wherever innocents were preyed upon. Each fight was sharpening him, and he would have setbacks where the wound would reopen, but even still, each victory would rebuild his body and mind, and throughout this underworld, whispers spread of a faceless warrior who tore through the criminal underworld with vengeance. But Anakin himself felt only pain. His friends were gone, wife and child nothing more than ghosts, and the Jedi Order and Republic he fought for was reduced to nothing. For a year, the galaxy above them only continued to evolve as an empire, while below, two Jedi saw their lives unfold in similar ways. Obi-Wan and Padme raising children of light in the darkness, Anakin waging a mini-war in the shadows, neither of them knowing how close they truly were. But during this year, whispers from the underworld made their way to the surface, whispers of a man and a woman carrying babies through the streets. Their descriptions would match Padme and Obi-Wan, and this lined up with the rumors of someone using a lightsaber to fight off enemies. Palpatine knew he had to pursue this. He would waste no resources to do it. 10 Inquisitors would be sent into the underworld, and they moved together out through the alleys as a pack. For days, the 10 Inquisitors didn't rest, as they moved from level to level, interrogating anyone for information, doing whatever it took for leads. And in the air, building to building, Anakin followed them. Anakin could only wonder what could prompt such a large group to come down here. And finally, the Inquisitors would come upon a rundown, abandoned cantina, where Padme and Kenobi were rumored to be hiding out. Obi-Wan and Padme were asleep with the two babies at this moment, but Obi-Wan woke up, feeling them in the Force before he saw them. He peered out of the window in terror, seeing 10 red lightsabers ignited. The door would be blasted down with the Force, and Obi-Wan had to ignite his own blade, immediately getting into the fight. His blade did move quick, but for every Inquisitor he wounded, 2 more would come forward. Padme held the twins, firing her blaster, until Obi-Wan yelled for her to run. He knew he couldn't hold them on forever. One red blade scorched his robes as he was being worn down. But then, someone else dropped from above. Anakin Skywalker hit the ground with a heavy swing, cleaving straight through one Inquisitor's chest, turning in the same motion to cut another in half. The remaining 6 Inquisitors paused. Anakin removed his hood. He and Obi-Wan would lock eyes. A year's worth of words passed between them, and they knew they had to survive this before anything else. Obi-Wan gave a small smile and he nodded. Anakin did the same, and then the two of them got to work, both hurling one Inquisitor into a wall before Obi-Wan flew in, finishing him with a stab. He ducked low under a red blade. Anakin jumped over him, cleaving down the attacker in a brutal swing, and the fight was turning quickly. The Inquisitors knew it was over, as together, Skywalker and Kenobi cut down the remaining fighters, Obi-Wan slashing perfectly, while Anakin used crushing blows. One of them tried to flee, but Obi-Wan leapt forward, landing a spinning slash across his back. Another raised both hands to crush Anakin with the Force, but Anakin shoved through it, roaring as his blade split the man from shoulder to chest. And at last, the battle would end. Anakin ran forward into a hug from Obi-Wan's arms. Anakin just said he's missed him so much. Then he opened his eyes to look behind Obi-Wan. Standing in a corner, in complete shock, was Padme, 2 bundles in her arms. Obi-Wan told Anakin to go to her, and so he did. The reunion was wonderful. It gave all 3 of them a missing piece to their lives: hope, direction, purpose. Before their reunion, it felt like they would need an entire army to take on Palpatine. But now, all they felt like was that they needed each other. The 2 of them would go and find the ship that the Inquisitors were using around the underworld, and the Jedi would fly it out of here, feeling the Coruscant sun through the windows, as they wasted no time. They flew right towards the executive building, and all of the security ships just assumed it was the Inquisitors returning from their mission. Upon arriving in the hangar, the 2 Jedi cut a hole in the bottom of their ship, then cut a hole in the hangar floor, and they moved through the large vents, finally dropping down right into the Emperor's office. The Emperor was mildly surprised. He turned to them, saying that when he sent the Inquisitors to the underworld, he saw 2 outcomes. 1, they kill Kenobi and take the twins. 2, Kenobi kills the Inquisitors and decides to come to him just to die anyway. But Palpatine said he must admit, the emergence of Skywalker was not foreseen. He thought Anakin died in the temple. He told Anakin he felt bad for him. All of this, the entire Empire, could be in his hands. But he will just have to die by Obi-Wan's side in the end. The Emperor would spin as his own saber blazed to life, and he lashed out with a flurry of jabs, forcing both Jedi into defense. His red blade was a crackling weapon that barely missed the 2 Jedi as he swung wildly. Anakin countered with a powerful overhead chop, which Palpatine barely turned aside before Obi-Wan struck from the other side, saber grazing Palpatine's sleeve. The clash lit the chamber as the hum of the blades echoed off marble walls and glass windows. The 3 of them broke off from each other, taking a moment to center themselves on the moment. Palpatine shifted the fight with the Force, hurling chairs and fragments of the desk into their path. Anakin batted aside the wreckage, while Obi-Wan darted between the objects, rolling under a piece of the desk, springing upward with a sudden slash that forced Palpatine to flip backwards. Anakin pressed forward in that moment, swinging with a year's worth of built-up strength, each strike rattling the Emperor more and more. Palpatine snarled, unleashing a sweeping attack that knocked Anakin off balance, but Obi-Wan was there, intercepting the next blow, striking quickly at Palpatine's knees. Palpatine leapt high, spinning in the air before landing in a vicious stab, aimed at Obi-Wan's chest. Anakin intercepted, saber locking with Palpatine's, the 2 straining against each other, as Obi-Wan circled and cut a deep gash across Palpatine's robes, slicing into his torso as well. Sidious stumbled away in shock and disbelief as the duel would reach its peak. Anakin drove Palpatine back with a series of heavy strikes, left to right, right to left, as him and Obi-Wan moved together. Finally, Palpatine would fall to the floor in the corner of the window, unleashing a burst of lightning, but Anakin raised his saber to absorb it. Obi-Wan cut through the blinding lightning, cutting off Palpatine's arms, and Anakin finished the job, ending this once and for all. Finally, he would be free to live the life he'd only dreamt of. And from here, Bail Organa and Mon Mothma's early efforts to create opposition to the Empire would step in to begin tearing down the Empire without Palpatine. Palpatine was the eye of the Imperial storm, and without him, the entire thing began collapsing upon itself. Padme would be a big help in this restoration, and in the meantime, Anakin and Obi-Wan would begin raising and training Luke and Leia on Naboo. Obi-Wan felt extremely close to the twins, but it was more so like an uncle than a father, and over time, they would grow into wonderful Jedi and people. Yoda would return, only to see the beginning of a new order, as the Sith were dead, while the Empire was soon to be nothing more than a bad memory, with Padme helping to lead the charge in this new galaxy. Folks, that is our video for today. An idea that is based very heavily off of The Walking Dead. Love that show. Shout out Rick and Shane. Didn't have Kenobi take the Shane path, if you know, you know. Yeah, this was just a fun one that I came up with. Well, just like going over a scene in one of my recent videos, I was doing a video where the invisible hand was integrated, and I was like, ooh, what if this happened? So I wrote it down, and now I did a video on it, and I had fun. Let me know what you thought of it. Yeah, it's fun. It was, I don't know, it was interesting to just kind of explore the whole thing. It's hard to keep Anakin, alive and hidden through Order 66, but that's how I wanted the story to go, so we did it. Thanks, everyone. Let me know what you want to see next. I guess I don't have too much to say today. Yeah. Happy weekend. Thanks for watching this video, and don't forget to click on the link in the description to get the special discount CyberGhost VPN is granting our channel users. This application will protect your data while you browse and give you full access to all blocked content on the internet for just $2.03 per month. Totally risk-free, so check out the link in the description, and I'll see you in the next video.